I love Austin. Austin's a great place.
I'm really excited to really showcase Indigenous stories.
We're ready and excited.
Hi, thank you everyone. Woo! How about this team? I'm so excited. My name is Mo Ryan. I'm going to moderate this. What I really hope to do is get out of the way and let these folks talk, because the incredible job that you all did on this show. I've seen the whole season. It's so good. It's so good.
How'd you like the show? Right.
So I just want to introduce the panel. Zahn, McClarnon.
Hey, guys.
Executive producer, and of course, Joe Leaphorn. Kiowa Gordon, Jim Chee.
Howdy. Howdy.
Jessica Matten, Bernadette Manuelito. Chris Eyre, incredible EP and director. Graham Roland, who is an executive producer and the creator for television. Deanna Allison, hello. Who is, of course, Emma Leaphorn and Vince Calandra, showrunner and EP. So I was just blown away by this show, and I wanted to. First of all, Zahn, you're an EP and the lead on the show, so I just feel like they put you through your paces. They made you earn that money because even.
You have no idea.
I'm not going to give away what happens in the season, but this physically, where you were running up hills and chasing down bad guys.
In cowboy boots.
In cowboy boots. And emotionally, for Joe and Emma, it's actually a very, there's a lot of resonance with the characters' past and their losses in their life. So was this like a really, in the top 5 of hard jobs you've done, or just challenging jobs?
Yeah, it was extremely challenging. It was a lot of fun though as well, and it was fun to jump into the character Joe Leaphorn. I mean, a lot of the heavy lifting had already been done with the Tony Hillerman novels, obviously. But doing scenes with Deanna Allison was amazing. She's an amazing actress. Me and Deanna, we went at it one night. We went at it one time. When we're in those highly emotional scenes, and things get a little crazy. You're surrounded by 50 or 60 people, and I had a little blow up, is what I did. And I love Deanna very much. I'm so happy to see you here, and I had a lot of fun playing Joe. I really did.
All right. Well, that seems like a transition to Deanna.
Yep.
So this was filmed in an area that you know well. And was it cool to not have to come to LA and film on a back lot in Burbank and to kind of know not just the culture but the area? What was that like?
It was definitely very nice to be in New Mexico filming, and that's where I grew up. It's where all my family's from. And just to be able to be a part of the Tony Hillerman series, I'm well aware of Chee and Leaphorn, and just to be a part of that and having it home and just seeing it on screen, and just felt so beautiful and powerful. Also, just to be back in my home state. And just working with Zahn, who was absolutely amazing. I learned a lot from Zahn. I was watching him and his character, and he's definitely very talented, and I really enjoyed working with everybody. Kiowa, Jessica, I mean, it was fun. And just having them in New Mexico in my home state, it was kind of like home court advantage. It felt like something.
We had a hard time finding Emma Leaphorn, and Deanna had not been really pursuing acting for the last few years, and we saw an audition tape of Deanna, and immediately I was like, that's Emma Leaphorn. You know, not just because she's Dene, but you know, she knows her culture obviously, but she just sparkled on screen, and immediately knew that was my Emma.
Well, Emma's first scene, I love that scene so much. I mean, that was just like, talk about revealing the character just right off the bat. She's a really strong woman. And, and Emma, if you want to, oh, sorry, good. I don't know if you want to jump in and talk about, did you talk to, I want to know, ask the cast, did you talk to tribal, I mean, you, Zahn, you play like, you've played multiple tribal police, but did you do additional research for this particular project on either the medical professionals in the Navajo Nation or the Navajo police? What was that like, the research process for you?
I mean, we're in a kind of a time crunch, honestly, so we didn't have a lot of time. But like you said, I've played a few tribal cops, and I've certainly done my research, and I grew up on and off the reservation, so I was very aware of how tribal cops act, and one of my uncles was a tribal cop up in Montana, so the research was there. I don't know, Deanna.
I actually there's a reality series that's based off the Navajo cops, and so I took time and I was watching just some of the reality series that's going that I've watched on YouTube, just to kind of get an idea of what it was like to be married to a Navajo policeman. But also, I see the Navajo Nation cops, growing up in the Four Corners area, so I hear a lot of the stories that they've had to go through, having to cover a reservation like the size of West Virginia, I've always heard a lot of stories about some of the hard work that they have to do, and cruising around hundreds of miles just to get help to families. So that was kind of something but I found interesting, though, was just following up with that reality series, and then also just reading the books as well with Tony Hillerman, and
So for Kiowa and Jessica, was that also for you? Was that something you grew up around? Was this something you had a familiarity with, and a comfort level with being the?
Yeah, I grew up a little bit on the Wallapai Reservation, Peach Springs, Arizona, and I had a couple spats with the tribal police there, and then also my dad, he was a cop. He was a deputy in Kingman, like the little mountain town over. So, I mean, everything I know from my dad. So.
Before Dark Winds, hi everyone. Before Dark Winds, I actually had wrapped another show where I play the tribal police officer that becomes the chief sergeant of the municipal police force. And I was also producing on that, so I just went in from that character to this one. But I also have friends who are tribal cops, and also beating up a bunch of boys on the res doesn't, not too shabby either. Helps the character.
Well, I felt like I was kind of watching my parents, because my dad was a cop and my mom was a nurse, and like that's a classic Chicago combo. It just felt to me like that service element, an element of trying to serve the community, but also being an authority figure in the community. It's a hard line to walk. It's not easy. One thing about Dark Winds that I love, I mean, I'm a mystery reader, so when I found out this was being made, I was very excited. But the novels, the show has these three characters together, Manuelito, Chee, and Leaphorn, whereas in the novels, you would be introduced to them in a different order. For the creative team, what was the thinking behind making sure we know all of them from the start, and they're kind of, I wanted to call them a team, but there's a little bit of friction. They're sort of becoming a team, I guess, put it that way. What was that? What was the thinking there?
Well, when I came aboard the project, Chris and George R. Martin and Robert Redford had already been talking about it as a television show, and they were developing it already, and they were looking for a writer. And when we sat down for the first time, one of the things that they said to me was that we wanted, two of the things was we want to set it in the 1970s, where the books took place, and we want Chee and Leaphorn. And that was, other than those things, they really kind of let me run wild, but those were very important to them. So Chris, I'm not sure if you remember the decision that went into that.
The decision to make it period and also to composite the characters together, I think, gets it off to a quicker start where you're familiar with the characters. And the great thing is that Bernadette comes along very quickly, which is great. But I love the period. I mean, I remember that Pontiac, that grill on that Pontiac. It does something to me. Where I say, oh, I remember those. And so there's something nostalgic, and I really appreciate the romance of the Southwest. We called this a film noir, and then we called it a Western film noir, and then we called it a Southwestern film noir, then we called it a Native American Southwestern film noir. And we went through all these, these paces with it, but it was all for love. I mean, it's for love of the Southwest, it's for love of Tony's material. I mean, to me, these characters are just beautiful. I mean, look at this beautiful cast. I mean, I look at their faces on screen and I'm just like, wow. Seriously, I mean, there's love, like the earth. You can see the earth tones in the faces and the warm mesas and the sunsets. And there's just something so organic about that. I think that we feel as a Western, but it's an Indian Western in a certain way. So it's all these composites together, and I think that's what's,
Yeah, no John Wayne.
No, with no John Wayne. Except you mentioned John Wayne a couple times later. Later in the series, you allude to John Wayne.
Yeah, I think Tony had written, I think, the first 4 books in the early 70s. I think 71 was the first book, where he started off with the Jim Chee character, and then he lost the rights to that character, I believe.
Yeah.
And he then said, well, screw you guys, I'm going to keep writing this character named Joe Leaphorn. And then he got the rights back, I believe that's what happened, and he, later on, his books incorporated Leaphorn Chee, and then he bring about Sergeant Manuelito, and then later on, after Tony had passed, his daughter now is writing the Bernadette Manuelito books. And I think she's written 4 of them, I think.
I think Bernadette focus is good. I think
Yes.
continue that.
I agree 100%.
But for you and Kiowa, it's a really intriguing set of secrets that you kind of both have on both sides when you first meet. And I love the pace at which as the writing team unpacked the secrets. But these are 2 people who don't tell each other. Like they're not sharing. It's not a sharing and caring. I mean, it's maybe some caring. But what was it like to work on that relationship and to build the relationship on screen and to, because I felt there was an affinity there. There was a natural kind of almost a friendship or an affinity or mentorship, but then you also really skillfully built in, you guys have the characters have different agendas and different pasts, and they're not on the same page. What was that like? Was it fun or, just to find that?
Yeah, I mean, knowing Zahn prior and just, just enjoying his company and then trying to create this tension of not knowing each other at first. But I think it's just, he's a good actor. Yeah, but, I love working with the guy, and
but your character.
we were tentative at first because you got to keep your cards close to your chest because you don't want to give everything away, and you don't know if he can help you, if he knows you are an FBI agent or not. So you got to just kind of test the waters a bit.
I really want to spoil some stuff that
I
happened.
know that I was going to say,
No spoilers.
if I talked about the relationship, we'd be kind of spoiling a
I
lot
know,
of
we can't do that.
future episodes, yeah.
No, none of that.
He's boss, I'm subordinate. That's it.
Chris, we were talking a little bit out in the lobby, and you were saying you wanted to see it on the big screen, and this is just an incredibly shot show. You guys just crushed it. Visually. I mean, As storytelling, it's great. I mean, everyone up here, you did great, but I mean, just what was it? You were saying, oh, well, you can't really take a bad shot out. I'm like, well, you probably could. I mean, what was it like to shoot in these vistas, and how did you scale between the intimate human drama and these incredible pictures?
I love the landscapes. I really do. I moved to Santa Fe 10 years ago, and I still just love the Southwest and the beauty of the land. And we talked early on about the land being a character. And how many times have you heard that? You go, oh yeah, I've heard that. You know, it's kind of part of the interview process. You know, when you're making a movie, they go, the land's a character in this one. You're like, oh yeah, I got it, right? But this one, I really felt that way, you know? I was like, this is really the people. You know, the people are the land, and there's those stories about the people coming from the earth. And so we really kind of took that to heart. And Paul Elliott was our cinematographer, and he did a tremendous job. Our production designer, Mark Garner, worked with our Navajo consultants. And, you know, even watching this on the screen, I saw the interior of the Hogan, and I think I really saw it for the first time, which is, you know, when you're working in there, I'm looking at these guys and like da-da-da-da-da. I saw all the, you know, the beauty of that wood and just the mud in between, and really saw it on the big screen, and it really resonated with me. So yeah, thank you for the compliment. It looks great.
It really does. I think we've seen people shoot the Southwest, obviously, many times, but this land, I mean, the Navajo reservation is not typically, they opened up a lot of things for you that other folks have not really, you know, used, and I think you did an incredible job. Vince, there was a story that came out today in the Hollywood Reporter. I really recommend it. You talked about how in the storytelling and the scripts, you just decided we're not going to explain, you know, the coming of age ritual. The characters aren't going to exposition certain things within the culture. And was that something that, you know, AMC was like, yeah, that's fine? Or, you know, where was the line in terms of that stuff where you just wanted to make it as natural to the community and the culture as you could?
I feel the studio was very supportive of that across the board. And there were a lot of things in the show where, you know, if you were maybe not in premium cable or on network television, you would be required to tell the audience what they're about to watch because they haven't seen it before. And what I loved about Dark Winds and the stories that, you know, were told in the writer's room was that you've never seen it before. You know, it's you haven't seen these ceremonies, you haven't seen this culture, you haven't seen this culture at this time period. And because it looks so beautiful and because we were out to make a movie, you know, it's like cinema, right? See it, not say it. And the characters wouldn't have to sit around and explain to each other what they already know. So we try to keep it real that way.
This is for Graham, but for anyone on stage. But, you know, I'm really glad that you kept that period element because the activism of the time was really, there was a lot going on. And was there ever any thought to sort of update it to the modern day, or was it always, this is the time that we really want to focus on for these characters?
I mean, I think initially when when George and Bob and Chris had talked about putting it in the 70s, you know, one of the reasons that they wanted to do that was, you know, the cops didn't have the forensic tools or cell phones, or they wanted to see old school police work. They wanted to see these guys solve crimes, you know, through their wits and through their knowledge of the land and the community. But for Chris and I, we talked about, you know, I know he had relatives, and my grandmother and my great-grandmother went through the boarding school experience, and there were just things that were more present in the 70s that you could talk about because the characters had either gone through those experiences or they had relatives who had gone through those experiences, where if we ever were to try to set it in 2022 to reach back 50 plus years to try and access that or talk about that, it wouldn't really feel organic to the story. And so to me, that was a really exciting opportunity for keeping it in the early 70s. because there was just a lot more things going on the surface than probably today.
I think it's an area of storytelling, you know, as this festival that celebrates storytelling, that era of Native activism is so underrepresented. I mean, there's just massive underrepresentation on a lot of fronts, but that's to me, such a rich time of activism and illumination and, you know, to me, I think that was a wise decision, and just for anyone on the creative team, I hope you get more seasons. Someone said something about a blinking green light for the future, which I don't understand, but hopefully it means there's more episodes, more seasons. What would you...
Get that word out there.
What would you want to explore in the future?
Well, there's 18 books to choose from.
So minimum 18 seasons.
Yeah, I think we set up a book kind of. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot to explore. It's pretty easy. I mean, the books go from 71 until 2006. I think the last book Tony wrote was 06, and yeah, we've got 2006. Yeah, it's, the Skeleton Man, I think it was. So there's a lot to explore.
Some more stuff after, you know. You can
Yeah,
keep going.
Be chief by then.
and it's pretty easy to. Yeah, right. Could you imagine just going 18-year Joe Leaphorn would be like,
I was actually with George Martin. We were hanging out, and he's like, "Let's do this for 18 seasons, Jess." And I was like, "I love you guys, but I don't know if I want to be with you guys for 18 years."
Where are the dragons? Yeah. By the way, feel just a tiny bit.
There is. We're gonna just jump the shark or jump the dragon.
There's a lot of dogs. I felt like there's not a lot of dragons. But seriously, there's a designated snake wrangler on set. Like, what was it like to make this? Because you guys were out in some remote locations. I mean, there was not like Starbucks nearby.
But it always came to set anyways.
What was it like? I mean, was it like did you form, you know, people always say they form a family, but like you were all out there together in these remote locations. Was it a tough shoot, or was it joyfully exciting?
I
We're
called
not
that guy
digging
the
ditches
snake
or
hunter.
I think we fooled you. A lot of what the genius of the show was that our line producer and the AMC team found an abandoned casino on the Tuskegee Pueblo, and it served as
Tasuki.
Tuskegee. So I got that right.
All high pockets here.
High pockets.
It's Shelly.
Definitely.
That's a T-shirt, you know.
Oh yeah, let's market this bit.
And it served as a great backlot for us. So I mean, there was the set that you saw, Ada's house, Joe's house, the Hogan village was all built on that backlight. So we had the luxury of having an indoor studio space if we needed to go there for weather, and have those locations like within 5 minutes, on dirt roads. It was really quite an operation they put together for us.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just lay down on the ground and put my ear real low and just listen. Just kidding. No, I would sit in my trailer and play my Xbox.
I was just thinking how I would react in that environment. I'd be like, I'm hot. Why are there snakes? I'm a complaint.
We actually, with your question about, we called him the snake hunter, and we would have these long days on set, and sometimes I just napped on a rock, and all of a sudden I hear him right beside me. He's like, "Oh, just checking under the rock," and when he did find them, he was super excited, and I got excited for him. Like, I got one! Yeah.
Well, that sounds fun. What are you hoping for the future in terms of the characters and where they go? I mean, I want there to be more, because the bonds that you all built in terms of the relationships amongst the characters, I feel like there's so much more to explore, especially Bernadette. I think there's so much potential with her character. I think that Joe is surrounded by some very strong Native women, and God bless you. I mean, he's. What can you talk about where you're hoping Well, actually, let me rephrase. I don't want to spoil the season, but just
There are a lot of loose ends at the end of the season.
Jessica, talk about your character's journey this season.
Yeah, her character begins to develop as the season continues, and she comes in hot. And it was cool because obviously Bernadette in the novels doesn't come in until later on, when Ann Hillerman started to write them. So, I was really grateful that the team here brought her in right at the beginning. And, we've been talking a lot about representation for Indigenous women in cinema, and what does that look like? And again, I've been doing this in Canada for quite a while on the shows out there, but we don't have the kind of reach in our country like there is out here. So I'm really, really excited for everyone to see, again, what, an Indigenous woman has been like and looks like to me my entire life. They're strong, they're resilient, they got humor, and those are survival tools too, so it's pretty cool. And I've just had such an amazing time, and working with Zahn and Kiowa is a dream because I've known these guys for 8 years. And funny story is, before lockdown, Kiowa and I were like, yo, we need to get one more bar in before the world shuts down. And so we did that, and I just said, Kiowa, let's just manifest that we work on something together. And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, and we were joking, but the next time we see each other, we're working together. So I mean, it's just a blessing overall. And I'm really
Speak it to
grateful
existence.
for
It's
that experience.
great.
Yeah. So I kind of strayed off your question, but I feel like I don't
No,
want to give away any spoilers.
Well, you
out.
actually segued perfectly into what I wanted to talk about, which is that it's long overdue. As I was saying to Deanna before, this is not like, it's not time for all this incredible Native representation. It's long overdue. And it's, right? Long. But I wonder if you all have thoughts on how to sustain this moment, because it's a difficult industry to get this made, the backstory of it all, and how many setbacks there were just for this project. There were many. So I'm wondering if you have thoughts on, there is a moment now, there's Reservation Dogs, Rutherford Falls, Dark Winds, there are so many films, so many projects, in development. How do we sustain this so it's not a blip on the radar? Because Hollywood, I call it sometimes the forgetting machine. They want to okay, well, we had that moment, and now let's just go back to how it was. Do you think it will not go back to how it was for anyone?
I mean, I think it's a calling to arms for all Indigenous people out there to take up the mantle, write your stories, produce, make more content.
Also, just the show giving the space to expose the other incredible actors that you see throughout the season. I finally saw the screeners myself just recently, and I'm blown away by the talent that does exist. So with that being said, is this a golden moment? I think just exposing this talent, there's going to be a point where it's not about you being Indigenous. You're just a damn good actor. That's what I think.
Yeah. I completely agree. It's really about investing in the characters like Emma and Joe and Bernadette and Chee, and just really investing in those characters and loving them. And I've seen the series. I've seen all 6 episodes. And there's just something about Emma and Joe that you gravitate towards because they're a family. Yes. Because they're a family, and you start to see them, and it just starts to unearth itself. Where I said Zahn is the Indian cowboy. I mean, he's wearing that Stetson, and that guy. You go, I've seen Westerns. He's the good guy. He's our good guy. And so that's what it is. It's the investment in that. And he's going to do the right thing, and he has these standards, and he's the ass kicker of, the police force, along with Bernadette and Chee. But yeah, that's the woo, thing. And you wouldn't mess around with Bernadette, She can handle herself. The thing I didn't know is that you were talking about Native women and representation. I didn't know that they were Pat Boone fans. That's what I found out.
Yeah, we just hope that, Dark Winds keeps that door open for, Indigenous talent in front and behind the cameras. And then we continue on this road. And I think it all comes down to, just getting the voices heard and telling our own stories. And I'm excited that, that we hope to be able to continue doing the show and keep opening that door further.
And there's the studio that's on the reservation. Like there's a facility. Like they're booking projects. To me, it's really exciting to walk on a set and see all the faces of who's coming up and who's learning the craft, and they're going to be the next generation. And so you're helping.
Well, that was also a part of it too. I was really excited to film at the Tsuki Pub. I'm like, finally, some casinos investing in films. That's also another way just to keep the stories alive, is by, having other communities, tribal communities that want to invest in these films. So that was why it was really fun to go there. Right there, your backyard, you have the mesas, right there in the studio. We didn't have to go very far. But it felt like you were right at home at the same time, and that it was just a perfect place to go and film and just be so close, but yet you're like in the middle of nowhere. And I just really appreciated the Tsuki Pueblo for that. And one of the things that I really appreciate about Emma is that they're writing more backstories of Emma, of her being this matriarch. She is a Navajo woman who cares about her family. She cares about her community. That is like the essence of Diné beauty. Rather it being aesthetically how you look, but it's about how you give to your community, to your family. And she's not afraid. That's one thing about Emma. She's not a pushover either. I mean, she married Joe Leaphorn, who's a badass. So, they're kind of like this two little badass couple trying to save the world together the best they could.
Absolutely. And it just, to me, what strikes me about the journey of the show was full of a lot of setbacks, but also perseverance and faith. And I think that the final product really reflects the faith and the gifts of a lot of people. So I'm grateful for all that you did to bring this to life. I think we have time for maybe a couple audience questions. So if I think are there usually, can you bring the lights up? If there are people who have questions, or there's a microphone right there.
Town hall it.
This is the quiz show portion, so.
This is like Donahue.
Hello.
Hey, I know that guy, Jeremy. What's your question?
Hi. Hi, everyone. First of all, congratulations.
Hi.
It was really fantastic, and it was super cool to get to see it on a big screen. And thank you for your time and coming and visiting us in Austin this weekend. I wanted to ask a question about someone who we didn't see in the first episode. You might not be able to talk about his character, but I know Rainn Wilson is in the show, and I was wondering any insights or any stories about working with him on set.
He likes to get naked.
Tidy whities, man. It's pure sexual energy.
Zahn isn't joking. We put him in a bikini, and he wanted something smaller. True story. He's a character that will enter into the show first in a television commercial, and then later, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But he's integral to the plot. He's not playing Dwight. He's playing a scumbag.
Like a Creed.
Yeah. And he played it well. It was good. So he was fun. He was fun to have on set.
All right, question? I don't know how many we'll have time for.
Yes.
So let's
I
just
have
keep
one.
going until they turn off the lights. That's my whole philosophy. Go ahead.
The panel touched on Navajo customs and culture. one of the interesting parts of the film were the mystic symbols. Where would one go to find out more about that symbolism? Would reading the Hillerman books alone sort of broaden understanding of the smudge on the eyes, the various other techniques that created an impression, but not a full understanding?
I don't know that the books alone, I mean, it's a good place to start, but we had the benefit of having, many great consultants, but we had the benefit of having 5 Native writers in our writers' room, 2 of whom were Navajo, and so we were able to draw from them for a lot of that, and we'll continue to do so. But I have to find you after. There's a great book that I read during the research, but the name is escaping me right now. But sure.
Maybe we can come back and get that information from
Season
you later.
2, yes.
Oh, one thing I will say about the Hillerman books that I think is something that I appreciate about them is that there's many cultures. There's many, it's not a monolith. Even this reservation, there's a lot of different variation, and so there's a lot out there beyond the books that I think the books are great, but I think they're a starting point, and there's a lot of obviously Indigenous writers who are doing incredible work in the area. Sorry, let's take your question. I think we have time. Yeah, do it.
So, Mo, oh my God, that's Mo, to your earlier points, how do we keep this going? It's not the responsibility of the people on the stage, it's the responsibility of people here to understand that just because you don't see yourself in a show doesn't mean that you can't watch it. Sometimes people need to see themselves on show to feel like, oh, this is made for me, but not everything has to be made for you to enjoy it. And it's everybody's responsibility here to make sure that we get representation of Native cultures and other cultures to be something great. So with that, what piece of you and your culture, other than, the obvious, was there something special, some tradition? Like when I saw you pull out the herbs, that was my grandmother, and I still do it today, and people look weird. Did you guys bring anything that was special, particularly special to you, into the show?
Yeah, at one point, I think in a scene, I can't remember what episode, I go like this. I point with my lips.
I do it too.
Like that's what I brought.
Thank you for what you said. I think ultimately it's, we are labeled as the Indigenous show, but really what is it about? It's just humans, and
right.
No matter what our color, whatever culture, we go through the same emotions and experiences and times in hardship where we have to fight through it. So yeah, so watch our show so we can have a season 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys are all beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would actually also add that, the charge I would lay down is not to the people on the stage who obviously are doing the work. I think it's the studios, it's the people who have the power of the green light. And I'm writing a book about this. Sorry for the digression, but no, I really do think that, people just can't talk the talk anymore about telling relevant stories. Where from different communities, they gotta pay people to make them and pay them fairly to make them, and that's a power that needs to be used well. Yeah, that's my soapbox, and I'm done. Okay, go ahead. Next question.
Just gonna say, Jordan Johnson, I just want to say it's so beautiful to see your language on a screen. It makes me really emotional. So thank you. But I think my question was just. In your dream world, what other Native stories do you want to see be told? I think I have my own dreams of what I want to see on the screen, and just curious for y'all, given studios and green lights and all of that stuff and all that crap that has to happen, but just in your dream world, what are some other Native stories that you'd love to see be told?
I would love the story of Wounded Knee in 72, 73. the American Indian movement back in the 70s, of, you know, a full biopic on Russell and Dennis and John Trudell and Leonard Crow Dog, you know, that Leonard Peltier, you know, that's what I would like to see. That's a dream, you know. There's a lot of scripts out there, but I'd love to see that be made one day.
Yeah, I'd like to like retcon some history, like a la, you know, Tarantino. Just go back with, you know, the great chiefs and actually have them pull together and create a giant army to fight back the colonists. Freaking amazing.
Well, I think that was a great final question. I mean, there's many, many stories we would like to see, and definitely want to see more from this group. Oh, sorry, I was told to wrap up. Okay, one more. I was wrapping up, but then everyone was sad and mad at me.
It's a quick question. This is for Chris. I worked at a video store years ago, and I was happy to discover smoke signals. And this year is the 24th anniversary of smoke signals. And just, what does it mean to kind of be here with this, and do you reflect and think of what you've accomplished?
25 years?
Yeah, almost.
No, this is great. I mean, I was thinking about what was just asked, and I think, you know, we just want to see stories about Native people, you know, doing fabulous things on screen, whether it be the American Indian movement. I thought to myself, I'd like to see Indians on Mars, and
Exactly.
you know, and then how would we treat people when they came after us, and you know, we'd show them the right way to, you know, I guess we did that with Thanksgiving, but you know, but something like that. You know, there's futurisms, a lot of futurisms, and how we go into the future. So I'm just excited about this, and I think if you want to learn more about anything, it's just a matter of digging into the characters and seeing where they go, and hopefully we'll go 5 or 6 seasons and just keep evolving all these characters up here.
I want to see that movie. It was like Natives in Space.
We'll come up with a title tonight. Natives in Space.
I also want to see that movie. I want to wrap up. I want to give Zahn the last word. Go for it.
I just wanted to say we have a couple more actresses in here that are on the show. Desba and Amelia Rico. Where are you guys at? Stand up. There they are. Yeah. Am I missing anybody else here? With the cast? No? Nobody else came? All right. I just want to make sure. Yes, Desba.
Can I just say?
That's a grassroots audience.
Is that the woman who played?
Yes.
I don't know if the word witch okay? Okay.
Ada Growing Thunder.
You were really scary. Yeah. I mean that in the best
That's
possible
a beautiful scary.
way, but incredibly charismatic too. So well done. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And bring on a season 2. Let's go!